What if entire skyscrapers, taller than the Statue of Liberty, worth hundreds of millions, built for generations, were erased from city skylines not by neglect, but by deliberate and sometimes shocking decisions, from foundations that literally split apart beneath rising glass towers, to boardrooms where a single scratch of a pen dooms engineering marvels? These are the tallest buildings ever demolished, each for reasons more unbelievable and dangerous than the last. The most astonishing part is the story behind why they fell, because that story is even stranger than their final collapse. This is where the unraveling begins. In the heart of Singapore's financial district, the CPF building once towered above Robinson Road, a 171 meters tall steel giant, finished in 1976, built to last generations. Yet in 2018, it vanished from the skyline. There was no hidden flaw in the steel, no urgent safety order, no disaster. The reason was profit. The Urban Redevelopment Authority rezoned the area, unlocking incentives for denser, more lucrative construction. The land beneath the CPF building became more valuable than the building itself. Developers saw a chance to double the floor area, boost rental yields, and ride a wave of surging demand for premium offices. The CPF board, having outgrown the old tower, moved on. The site, sold for over 1.2 billion Singapore dollars, was cleared for a new complex that could generate up to 2.5 times the rental income. Demolition crews did not use explosives. Instead, they dismantled the tower floor by floor, cranes lifting steel beams from the top down, keeping dust and disruption to a minimum in the crowded central business district. More than 90% of the building's materials were recycled. The CPF building's fate was sealed not by age or weakness, but by a market logic that rewards efficiency over endurance. Here, ambition was not undone by failure, but by the cold math of redevelopment. Some skyscrapers fall because they are flawed. Others, like this one, are simply outbid by the future. On South Padre Island, Texas, construction crews raced to finish a tower that would have dwarfed every other building on the Gulf Coast. The Ocean Tower was designed to rise 42 stories, a beacon of luxury living above the surf. But beneath the concrete and steel, the ground itself was plotting against them. In 2006, geotechnical monitors recorded a 16-inch drop in the foundation, an alarming sign for a structure barely halfway built. Engineers pored over soil samples and pile depth, searching for answers. The problem was loose, silty sands and shallow pilings, unable to bear the tower's enormous weight. Cracks began to snake across columns and slabs, the building tilting as the ground shifted unevenly. Safety teams ordered an evacuation. By 2008, the project was abandoned, its skeleton looming over the beach like a warning. Repairs would have cost more than starting over. Controlled Demolition Incorporated was called in, tasked with bringing down a leaning giant without chaos. On June 13, 2009, 1,500 pounds of dynamite erased nearly 120 meters of failed ambition in just 15 seconds. The ground that had betrayed the builders swallowed the debris. Ocean Tower's collapse was not the work of fire or economics, but the silent, relentless power of the earth itself. Steel giants, felled by profit. Concrete towers, toppled by the ground beneath. These stories sound familiar: a building's value outpaced by the land it sits on, or a foundation betrayed by shifting earth. Each reason feels rational, almost expected. But these explanations only scratch the surface of why the world's tallest buildings sometimes vanish. The logic of the marketplace, the unpredictability of geology, both can bring down a skyscraper, but neither carries the full weight of what is possible. The truth is, the greatest risks to these colossal structures often come from within. Not every downfall is written in balance sheets or soil reports. Sometimes disaster strikes from the heart of the building itself. A single spark, a hidden flaw, a chain reaction no one saw coming. The familiar stories of money and mud are only the first cracks in a much larger fault line. For every tower erased by economics or nature, there are others undone by forces far more sudden and chaotic. In the shadows of these early defeats, a more unsettling question lingers. What happens when the very thing meant to protect a building becomes the cause of its destruction? The countdown to collapse is rarely simple. The next story proves just how quickly everything can ignite. Flames broke out on the 22nd floor of One Meridian Plaza just after 8:20 in the evening on February 23, 1991. Within minutes, thick black smoke poured from the windows, and the building's fire alarms echoed down Market Street. Inside, office workers scrambled for the stairwells, some choking on acrid fumes before they reached the exits. Firefighters arrived to find a wall of heat and darkness. The building's fire suppression system, designed to hold back disaster, failed them. Sprinklers had not been installed above the 30th floor. As the blaze climbed higher, it found fuel in paper files, carpeting, and furniture, devouring one office after another. Crews battled the inferno for hours, dragging hoses up smoke-filled stairwells, only to discover that water pressure was too low to reach the upper floors. Windows exploded outward from the heat, sending glass and debris tumbling to the street below. Flames leapt from floor to floor, unchecked by the building's compromised compartmentation. At its peak, the fire raged across 8 stories, visible for miles, a red wound against the Philadelphia skyline. Rescue teams worked through the night, searching for anyone trapped inside. 3 firefighters lost their lives when a flashover engulfed a stairwell, cutting off escape. By dawn, the top third of the tower was gutted, steel beams warped by temperatures that reached 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The concrete core stood blackened and exposed, a skeleton looming over the city. The aftermath left more than just charred offices. Water and smoke damage crept down to the lower floors, rendering the entire building uninhabitable. For years, One Meridian Plaza would remain a hollow monument to failure, a towering reminder that even the mightiest structures can be undone from within. By sunrise, One Meridian Plaza was a blackened husk, but the fire's destruction was only the beginning. Insurance investigators, lawyers, and city officials descended on the site, each with their own questions and claims. The building's owners filed for damages, but the insurers refused to pay out until every detail was examined: who was at fault, which policies applied, how much the charred remains were truly worth. For every answer, a new dispute surfaced. Engineers debated whether the steel frame still held its strength. Inspectors flagged risks of falling debris. Meanwhile, the city worried about a half-ruined skyscraper looming over Center City, its windows shattered and its walls streaked with soot. Legal battles stretched on for years. Lawsuits and counterclaims piled up in the courts. Without a clear settlement, no one could touch the building. The owners could not repair or demolish it without risking their insurance payout. The insurers would not pay as long as there was any hope of salvaging value. City regulators issued violation notices, but enforcement stalled in the face of litigation. Every proposal for cleanup or removal ran into a wall of paperwork and finger-pointing. For 8 years, One Meridian Plaza stood empty. Pigeons nested in the upper floors. Rainwater seeped through broken glass, warping floors and rusting beams. Downtown workers hurried past the cordoned-off entrance, a daily reminder of unresolved disaster. The city's patience wore thin as the tower's decay spread to neighboring properties. Mold, rodents, and falling brick threatened to spill into the streets. It was not until 1999 that the final agreements were signed. Demolition crews arrived with orders to dismantle the building floor by floor. What fire had started, bureaucracy had prolonged. By the time the last girder was hauled away, nearly a decade had passed since the flames died out. The legal wrangling had left a deeper scar than the fire itself, turning a single night's disaster into years of stagnation and loss. On Liberty Street in Lower Manhattan, the Deutsche Bank building once loomed over Ground Zero, a dark, glassy silhouette scarred but standing after the September 11th attacks. In 2001, as the dust settled, environmental teams moved in to assess the damage. But what they found was not just broken windows or burned-out offices, but a silent enemy woven deep into the building's bones. Asbestos, lead dust, mercury, and a cocktail of toxic chemicals coated every surface, carried in by the collapse of the Twin Towers next door. Air samples revealed contamination levels far above legal limits. The building's ventilation shafts, carpets, and ceiling tiles became reservoirs for poison. Invisible hazard crews, suited head to toe in protective gear, entered a world of invisible danger. Every step released clouds of microscopic fibers. Even the smallest mistake, a torn glove or a broken seal, could mean exposure to cancer-causing particles. The air was thick with warning: no safe breath, no clean touch. Workers moved slowly, stripping away layers of debris, vacuuming dust inch by inch, sealing every bag for regulated disposal. Each floor became a containment zone, monitored by sensors and guarded by negative air pressure systems to keep toxins from escaping. The scale of the threat was staggering. The building's 41 stories hid enough asbestos to fill hundreds of dumpsters. Cleanup protocols demanded painstaking precision. Workers had to sign in and out, shower on site, and submit to medical checks. The city imposed strict oversight, but the risk never faded. For years, the Deutsche Bank building stood as a toxic shell, too dangerous to occupy, too contaminated to demolish by ordinary means. And the cost of removal soared past $160 million, with every delay raising the stakes for those inside. For the people on the ground, the danger was constant and unseen. A single misstep could mean a lifetime of illness. The building became a haunted place, not by ghosts, but by a poison that no one could see and few would ever forget. Crews arrived at the Deutsche Bank building in 2007 with a task no one envied. They had to take down a 41-story tower, one contaminated floor at a time, in the heart of Lower Manhattan. The rules were strict. No explosives, no shortcuts, no margin for error. Every window pane, every wall panel, every inch of ductwork had to be sealed, cut, and lowered by crane. Workers moved in shifts, dressed in layers of protective gear, their faces hidden behind respirators. Each day brought the same routine. Enter the containment zone, strip away a few more feet of the building's skin, then retreat to showers and medical checks. Progress was measured not in stories lost, but in hours logged, air samples cleared, and tons of hazardous waste hauled to regulated landfills. Outside that, the city's patience wore thin. For years, the Deutsche Bank building stood like a wound that refused to heal. Neighbors watched as the tower was peeled back floor by floor, the pace so slow it sometimes seemed the building would stand forever. Local businesses complained about lost foot traffic, while residents braced for another morning of alarms and street closures. Project managers faced questions at every turn. Why was it taking so long? Why couldn't it just come down in a single weekend like other towers? The answer always came back to safety. The air inside the building was laced with asbestos, lead, and mercury. A single breach could send clouds of poison drifting through the streets. As months turned to years, the emotional toll deepened. Workers spoke of the building as a living thing, unpredictable, stubborn, and dangerous. Accidents and close calls haunted the project. In 2007, a fire broke out on the 17th floor, killing 2 firefighters and triggering new rounds of investigation and oversight. Each setback brought fresh scrutiny, more paperwork, and tighter controls. By the time the final steel beam was lifted away in early 2011, nearly a decade had passed since the building was first condemned. For the project leads, the end brought relief, but no celebration. The Deutsche Bank building's slow disappearance had drained time, money, and spirit from everyone involved, leaving behind not just an empty lot, but a lingering sense of exhaustion, and the uneasy knowledge that erasing a giant can sometimes take far longer and cost far more than anyone ever imagines. When the Singer Building opened its doors in 1908, New York City's skyline changed forever. Rising 187 meters above Lower Manhattan, this slender tower was the tallest building in the world, a monument to the ambitions of the Singer Manufacturing Company and the vision of architect Ernest Flagg. Its copper dome gleamed above Broadway, a beacon of modern engineering and Gilded Age confidence. Flagg's design fused ornate Beaux-Arts flourishes with cutting-edge steel frame construction, pushing the boundaries of what seemed possible in an era still haunted by the panic of 1907. Inside, marble floors and vaulted ceilings welcomed visitors, while banks of elevators whisked workers to Singer's global headquarters. The tower quickly became a symbol of American ingenuity, its silhouette etched into postcards and travel guides. For decades, it stood as proof that no dream was too grand, no building too tall. Crowds craned their necks to admire the spire, and city guides boasted of its record-breaking height. The Singer Building was more than an office. It was a declaration of intent, a promise that New York would always reach higher. But in the shadow of that promise, a question lingered. How long can a symbol of progress hold back the tide of change? In 1968, the Singer Building, once the tallest tower on Earth, was reduced to rubble by choice, not necessity. A deliberate choice. U.S. Steel, eager for a headquarters that could triple their usable space, saw more value in empty land than in a world-famous landmark. Preservationists pleaded for a reprieve, calling the Singer irreplaceable, A living relic of New York's ambition, the city's new landmarks commission, still finding its footing after the outcry over Penn Station's demolition, had no power to intervene. The sale had closed, the plans were drawn, and the steel frame was already being picked apart. Chandeliers from the marble lobby were boxed up for an art school, and the rest was carted off as scrap. For months, crowds gathered to watch as the copper dome disappeared from the skyline floor by floor. Critics called it an act of cultural vandalism. The American Institute of Architects called the loss the city's greatest since Penn Station. In the end, progress won out over memory. The lesson was bitter. Even the most celebrated giants can be erased, not by disaster or decay, but by a collective decision to forget. The singer's fall fueled a movement, but for the building itself, there was no second chance. Today, entire skylines can change overnight. No building, however tall or costly, is truly permanent. As cities race to redefine themselves, demolition often outpaces preservation. Towers once hailed as triumphs now vanish for profit, for safety, or for erasure. The next icon to fall may already be standing. Every skyline is just one decision away from disappearing. Tell me, what would you fight to keep in your city?